What's going on, everyone? Episode 61 of Locker Talk Live. My name's Wack, and join with me today, I have Scotty and Shane, and I'll get to them in a minute. But man, it's a good week to be a Texas high school football fan. We have some TAPS champions to talk about. We've got state finals figured out in the 1A realm, and then of course in 2A through 6A, we got the state semis coming up this week. Before we talk about all that, I've got, of course, bring in my two co-hosts for today, Scott and Shayna. Scott, let's start with you. How you doing, man? Of course, you gotta be over the moon right now. Your Baylor Bears are the Big 12 champs right now, so you got to be over the moon. Barely just missed out on a potential playoff berth with with things not quite shaking out the way you need to for Baylor. But how you doing, man?
Hey, Baylor's Big 12 champs. I don't really care. Like, it's fine. What an ending, though, to that game. I mean, that guy was literally this close. And, of course, enter the memes of Friday Night Lights being 1 yard short. Also saw another one, a funny one of the Tennessee Titans being a yard short, defeating the St. Louis Rams in the Super Bowl. It was literally, if not closer, than those two instances. So Baylor back on top, Big 12 champs, third Big 12 title in less than a decade. And, Josh, guess who that ties for second most all time is the University of Texas. So don't at me, Baylor football. We are so back, man. It is awesome. David Rand is staying, too. It's a good time to be a Baylor Bear.
Well, last time someone said they're back, they took a little tumble. So, hopefully Baylor doesn't have that same
Big
fate.
12 championship to back it up.
Shayna, how you doing today?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm doing great. We had a big weekend. Lots to cover today. State titles, semifinals coming up. I'm doing great. I'm excited.
Thanks for asking, y'all. I'm doing great as well. Pretty good weekend.
Josh,
of course.
It's good to see you, man.
Pretty good weekend of some college football. Really, I would say Baylor was probably the most upset worthy, right? Because Oklahoma State had a lot on the line. They're probably. I wonder how. I wonder if Oklahoma State gets in over Cincinnati if they win that Big 12 title. Then of course we know Bama beats Georgia, which kind of puts things in a little bit of perspective. But let's just start on the college football. I mean, we always kind of start the show talking a little non high school news. So. As everyone is probably aware that is watching this, you're probably a sports fan, so you should know. The four teams in this order are Alabama came in at 1, Michigan came in at 2, Georgia came in at 3, and Cincinnati came in at 4, Cincinnati being the first non-Power 5 school to get in the tournament. The first question, and I'll raise this to both of you. First off, did they get the 4 teams right? And secondly, did they get the order right? Scott, I'll start with you.
Yes, they got them right. My only qualm, and this is again very selfish and biased in this regard, is that Baylor was not number 6. They had Ohio State in as number 6. It's just ironic because back in 2014, one of the few times that Baylor was in the conversation for the college football playoff, Ohio State jumped TCU and Baylor in 2014 because the committee said that they had that extra data point of a conference championship. Now, Big 12, for that reason, added a conference championship. Baylor won their conference, adding that extra data point. And guess who is still ahead of them in the rankings with no conference championship even being played was the Ohio State Buckeyes. So that's my only qualm. Again, very biased. I understand that. But I feel like I got some points to back my point up. So
they got one. Right. They got 1 through 4 right, though, as far as the order.
Yes, they got 1 through 4 right, in my opinion. Alabama put a shellacking on Georgia. Michigan looked above average against Iowa, so Alabama proved once again that they are the best team in the country. Even though they struggled against Auburn, they really put it to Georgia, especially on a neutral site. That makes it that much more impressive, in my opinion. So I think they got it right, and also big congrats to Cincinnati. First group of 5 team ever to make it in the college football playoff / a Big 12 school as well. So no big deal.
Shane, I'll come to you in a moment, but do you think maybe Georgia is maybe a little overhyped when you look at their biggest win coming into the game was what, the 20th ranked team in the nation, I believe it was? Or Scott, you said yes?
Yes, no doubt. Looking at Georgia's resume, if you compare apples to apples here, they had their strength of schedule wasn't very high because the SEC East is not very good. I mean, there wasn't really any other good team in the SEC East. Who they played in the SEC West wasn't very good either. Maybe their best opponent was Auburn, who ended up, I think, winning 7 games this year. So it's a tough rivalry game, but Auburn usually wasn't Auburn like they are year in, year out this season. So they had 0 wins in the top 25. The strength of schedule is like 40-something. They have a ton of 5-star recruits, and they dominated the games that they were supposed to dominate in, but the first time that they were really tested, they got blown out. So maybe Georgia was a tad overhyped.
Well, and Alabama definitely gave Michigan the blueprint on defense or on offenses. Play tempo, right? You play tempo, you're going to wear that defense out. So it'll be interesting to see what Michigan's offense does, to see if they kind of mimic some of what Alabama did. It does give credence, though, to the Big 12, and I don't think this is going to happen going forward just because of the amount of teams they have, but something I always like about the Big 12 is you play everyone. So you don't get 3 or 4 years off like kind of SEC does, where, Georgia doesn't see Alabama for 3 or 4 years in the regular season, which is kind of absurd. But Shayna, let me come to you. I know I said I'd come to you and want to give you the room to talk. Did they get the 4 teams right, and did they get the order right, Shayna?
So I would say they definitely got the 4 teams right. I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, though, and I'm going to go ahead and say that, I'd argue that Michigan should have been that top-ranked team, and I think part of the reason that they're not is just because Alabama is so decorated, and Alabama consistently gets the job done. And another reason is they don't want Alabama and Georgia happening so early in the playoffs.
So true.
I think.
Yep.
So I think that's the only thing that I would have changed. But other than that, I think they got it right.
Yeah, look, ESPN spent all day yesterday saying that wasn't a reason, but deep down, that they didn't want Alabama and Georgia playing in the state semis. Or not state semis, in the semis. So they can try and spin it all they want, but there's part of these people's because there's no reason why like Michigan couldn't be number 1, right? So I don't think people would have thought it would be very outlandish. So I mean, you talk about Alabama having a close game at Auburn, and Michigan barely loses to Michigan State, a rivalry game. So it's kind of right there. So you know what? But it is what it is. We're really going to see, can Cincinnati hang with Bama? Can Michigan hang with Georgia? We're going to find out, and we're going to find out in a couple of weeks. Really quick, just yes or no. We'll have more time to talk about this throughout the coming days and weeks and years. Should college football playoffs be expanded? Scott, yes or no?
Yes.
Shayna, yes or no?
Yes.
I agree with you 100%. I think it should be 12 teams personally, maybe 16 tops, but that's just my opinion. We can talk about that later. But let's get into TAPS high school football here. We had our champions this week crowned. Let me run through them real quick, and then we can talk about some of these matchups. In the 11-man D4, we had Shiner St. Paul getting the championship, which, if I'm not mistaken, I did a little, I didn't get it. I only went to Max Prep, so I didn't get to verify this. I believe this is a 4-peat for them. So I believe this is the 4th year in a row they've won TAP State. So it was a quick check this morning that I did. I didn't really verify anything. I only went to Max Preps, but it looks like it's a 4-peat for them. So someone correct me if I'm wrong. And then in 11-man D3, Cypress Christian, they won, beating Trinity Christian Lubbock. In D2, Dallas Christian gets the win over the Second Baptist Eagles, Scott's alma mater. In D1, as we all kind of thought, Parish Episcopal got the win over Midland Christian. In a 6-man D3, Covenant Classical Fort Worth got the win over Bracken Christian. In 6-man D2, Live Oak Classical got the win over Faith Academy of Marble Falls. And in D1, Emory Weiner School, Weiner, I don't know how to say that. It's a Houston school, so maybe Scott. There you go, Weiner. I got the win over San Marcos Academy. So let's talk about some of these. Scott, I'm going to come to you. Talk to me about some of these TAPS championships. I know your Second Baptist Eagles came up just short.
They did. I want to start off with Cypress Christian, actually. Big congrats to Cypress Christian. Well, first off, congrats to all these teams winning state championship. I don't really care what level you play at. Yes, it's harder to follow some of the smaller schools, but anytime you can win a state championship, that's awesome. So big congrats to everybody and all these schools and kids who walked away with the state championship ring. Cypress Christian, man, I saw them play earlier this year against Second Baptist, actually. And Second Baptist blew them out. I think they won by like 35. But I came away being like, man, that Cypress Christian team, they looked the part, especially at that level. And so not really surprising that they ended up winning a state championship. Parish Episcopal, as you talked about, I mean, blew away Midland Christian. Parish Episcopal running back.
That was a three-peat for them, right? That's a three-peat for them?
Yes, three-peat for them. So Parish Episcopal establishing one of the biggest brands in the private school world, winning 3 state championships at the highest level. Very impressive there. Very impressive. And freshman quarterback. So keep that in mind. that freshman quarterback, there's a great story on VYPE.com. Go check it out. That's they're looking for a lot more state championships. Let's put it that way. They're not happy with 3. They want 4, 5, 6 in a row here. So Parish Episcopal and then Dallas Christian. Dallas Christian, year in, year out, one of the better private school programs. Last year lost to Regents on a walk-off pick 6. And then years before that, they got knocked out by Cedar Hill Trinity Christian. So Cedar Hill gets out of TAPS. Dallas Christian makes it to state, loses, makes it to state again, and gets the job done this time. This has been a long time coming for the Dallas Christian Chargers. So, Second Baptist couldn't get it done. I think they just I don't know what happened. I haven't talked to Josh really about it yet, who was there on the ground, him and Matt. So it just looks like Dallas Christian play a little bit better. Sometimes teams have your numbers. So those are my thoughts on the TAP state championships. Jana, how about you? Your Metroplex teams are really seem to bring home the state titles.
They were really, really impressive. I had absolutely no doubts in Parish Episcopal from the start of the season, going in and getting that three-peat. And like you said, freshman quarterback, he has a whole lot coming for him. I do believe that in his freshman season, he's broken all of the records that Preston Stone set his freshman season. Preston Stone is now the quarterback at SMU. But incredible season for Parish Episcopal. I expect to see, maybe even a four-peat next season. Dallas Christian, I knew they would come into this game hungry, ready for a win, that they came into this season with that mindset, that mentality, ready to go. Their defense, from all the highlights I saw, they played incredibly strong. And you got to give it to Second Baptist. They also played well. But, some games, they're just not it for you. And Dallas Christian Chargers came in strong, took that state title, and DFW is up the top now.
Yeah, it seemed like DFW definitely, for the, especially at the top tier, came away with some, convincing wins. And, but then, you have Houston and kind of the Austin, San Antonio area representing a little bit as well. So, but I think for me, Parish Episcopal, I think everyone thought that. I thought it was personally going to be a rematch between Dallas Christian and Regents, and of course Second Baptist. Got that first kind of hump, got over that first hump, and they weren't able to get the second, meaning winning the TAPS, title. But they definitely have something to grow on. So I thought Dallas Christian was going to be a strong team going in. I think I said early on that I thought it was going to be a rematch, and I was half right. And Dallas Christian, they kind of took the Regents route, right? So Regents for a long time had been trying to get that title and couldn't because of was it Trinity Christian, or I forget what they're called. It was the team that Deion Sanders was the assistant coach for, and his son was the quarterback for, and they got over that hump finally, and then Dallas Christian ran into that horrible loss last year. Horrible being just the way it was with the pick 6 to win the game, and now they kind of got over the hump. So hey, maybe it's Second Baptist turn next year. Who knows? Stay tuned and find out next year. But some great TAPS action, and now that TAPS is out of the way, that means UIL is the only thing left in the state of Texas to figure out when it comes to champions. And I'll just briefly run through real fast. We have our state finalists for 1A. We have Westbrook and May in the 1A D1. I think a lot of people think May is the favorite. I think I have them picked, as well as maybe a few others in our picks for state champions. And then in 1A D2, it's Motley County and Strawn. Of course, I think I had Strawn as well. So this is going to be two very good matchups, I feel like, in 1A D1 and 1A D2. And then 2A through 6A, if I'm not mistaken, we only have and this is 1A through 6A. I think we only have 3 state champions left, and we'll have one guaranteed state champion making the return because Westlake and Katy are playing each other. And as we know, last year, Westlake was the 6A D2 D1 champion, and Katy was the D2 champion. And now they're both in D2 this year. Or that could be reversed, but either way, they both were champions last year, and now they're both in D2. And then in, I believe it is 5A. Let me find my little. Running through my brackets right here. Who is the lone other champion? So I think it's Gunter. I think is the other one, which is 3A D2. So only 3 champions left, and kind of surprising. What do y'all? What? Give me your thoughts on this. I'm a little tongue tied by the fact that we have so many champions out now. Scott, give me your thoughts on this.
All right, here are my thoughts. Yes, state champions are out, but I'm going to focus on 6A here for a sec because that's what I'm most familiar with. Looking at the brackets, D1 and D2, they're very much usual suspects. I mean, these are some of the premier Texas high school football programs in the state of Texas. Think about who's just coming out of Region 1 right now. You have Denton Guide. You have South Lake Carroll. Okay, coming out of Region 3, you have North Shore and Katy. Gotcha. Region 4, you have Westlake and Lake Chavis. And then the only really surprise is Tomball. Now, Tomball might be one of the surprises of the entire Texas high school football playoffs coming out of Region 2, D2. But then D2 or D1 Region 2, you have DeSoto. So of those 7 out of those 8 teams, those are usual suspect, recognizable names to anybody outside of the state of Texas. So yes, even though defending champs are out, these teams have won state championships. Guyer, South Lake Carroll, North Shore. I mean, North Shore won back-to-back state championships before getting knocked out by Westlake last year. But then you have the state champs going against each other, Katy and Westlake. Oh yeah, also in Westlake you have their district rival, Lake Travis, who maybe has surprised people by beating Brennan and making it to the state semifinals. So there's, at least on the 6A level, it is so awesome. And then there are also some really great stories here. I'm thinking of South Oak Cliff, DISD, making it to the state semifinals as well. How about Paytow out of Katy ISD making it to their first ever state semifinals championship? Mansfield Summit. I mean, there are so many really good teams that are left here. So this is what we want, especially, man, the game I cannot get over and what I'm most looking forward to, I think, is Katy versus Westlake. 2 state champions meet in the state semifinals. This is what we said was going to happen at the beginning of the playoffs a month ago. It is finally here, and dadgummit, this game is going to live up to the hype. I'm so pumped.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of these matchups here in a second. By the way, it was Shiner that's still in Gunter. Gunter lost in the state state finals last year, but they're still in it, so they have a chance to kind of get over that hump. But Shiner is the one that's still in it, and let's kind of talk about that. Speaking of Shiner, let's talk about some of these games. And Shane, I'll come to you in a second because I want to get your take on this about. What do you think about some of these matchups that happened this past week in the regional finals and some of these results? I mean, Shiner absolutely destroyed Refugio. Like I personally, me especially, I thought that was gonna be a close game, and that was an absolute just destruction by Shiner. I mean, it was impressive what Shiner did to Refugio. A few others, that come to mind, just kind of going through Fall City, getting the win over Burton. Burton had a losing record, but they technically had a winning record because they had to forfeit some games. But Fall City gets the win there. Lago Vista from the Austin area is in the semis, and that one is a kind of an interesting run by Lago Vista there. And then kind of moving on, you have Austin LBJ still in it, who I think is one of the favorites. Cuero getting by Geronimo Navarro, and kind of avenging their lone loss of the season in 4A D2. Moving on, you have Katy Paytow getting by Hightower fairly easily. College Station and Denton Ryan, what a game that one was. If you didn't get to watch that one, a very great game there. 5A D2. South Oak Cliff on to the semifinals, beating Lovejoy. That is the feel-good story right there. And, of course, you have Liberty Hill and Crosby going on. And then Duncanville gets by DeSoto. South Lake Carroll gets by Allen. Shayna, any of the Lake Travis wins for the 17th time against the San Antonio school in the playoffs for the 17th straight year or something like that, or not 17th straight year because they got bounced in the first round last year. But Shayna, any of these games surprised you about the results?
I mean, obviously Refugio absolutely surprised me. Normally Refugio wins, and they win convincingly. But to see how much Shiner put up against them, I was really shocked. Other than that, I'm the entire season of South Oak Cliff, I was gonna say, has just not necessarily surprised me, but here now we're at the semifinals. I'm thinking, is this the team that we've been sleeping on? Is this the team that nobody considered and maybe we should have considered for Scott's team of destiny? Well, I think it'll be really telling to see this week how they play. Other than that, I was very surprised to see such a close game out of Denton Guyer Prosper. I thought the fight would be there. The more surprising part of that game, though, for me, was that Prosper took a big lead. Not necessarily numbers wise, but strength wise on the field in that first half. They went into the first half ahead, and then Denton Guyer came out and did Denton Guyer things in the second half. Duncanville versus DeSoto, I definitely thought that would be a much bigger game out of DeSoto. But like we said earlier, some games you just don't have it. And then Allen. Allen came out extremely strong. They scored in the first 13 seconds of the game. Everything looked like it was going to go Allen's way. And then South Lake Carroll just kind of came out and steamrolled. And I think this is really big for South Lake Carroll with a new quarterback, showing what they can do, showing that, they're not all about just one name. And we've seen that. We've seen that year after year with South Lake Carroll. But I think this year specifically, especially, is statement win after statement win for South Lake Carroll.
Yeah. And now we have some absolute bangers this week. I mean, just rolling through real quick. I'm going to take a quick look at some of these. I mean, in 2A, you got Shiner and Timpson. You got Martin Falls City, Brock and Mount Vernon. Moving on, let's see. Chapel Hill and Austin LBJ. Cuero and China Springs. Salina and Gilmer. College Station and Mansfield Summit. Crosby and Liberty Hill, that one should be an absolute all-timer. I mean, as we all know, last year's game ended on Liberty Hill going for the 2-point conversion and the win, and they fumble right before crossing the goal line. And then you have North Shore and Lake Travis, Duncanville, and South Lake Carroll. Tomball, Denton Guyer, Katy, Westlake. Basically, 6A, Division I and Division II, all those games are must see. We're going to get more into, we're going to have a show on Wednesday, and we're going to get more into some of this stuff and break it down a little more. But just your initial thoughts on some of these matchups. I know, Scott, you already talked about Westlake and Katy, but any more of these matchups, just your initial thoughts on any of them?
I mean, South Lake Carroll versus Duncanville, rematch of last year. Did they meet up 3 years ago too? Because I know Duncanville made it to the state championship back-to-back years. I can't remember who they faced. Man, I just feel like they're meeting all the time. It's either South Lake or Allen, Duncanville. State meet for the state championships. Man, it's awesome. It really is. See, Denton Guyer. I mean, back in the mix, right? Did Guyer win state last year?
No, they lost to Westlake. No, not Westlake. They lost to who was this other 6A champion? It's blanking, but they lost.
Why am I going blank? Wait, I don't want to move on yet. I want to figure out who it was.
Hold on,
Who won state last year?
Who won state last year? Hold on, I'll tell you right now. Give me.
It was Katy, right?
Yes, Katy. Katy beat. They didn't make it last year. Never mind. Denton Guyer didn't make it. They made it 2 years ago, and that's when they lost to Westlake in the championship. That's what I'm thinking of. Denton Guyer lost to Cedar Hill last year in the. I think it was, if not the state semis, it was the regional finals, one or the other. That's what it was.
Has Guyer won a state championship?
They have. It's been a while. I think around 13, which I think was when Coach Walsh's son was the quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember though.
Okay, maybe I'm tripping because I know they met. Maybe they lost to Shadow Creek. in 5A? Maybe no, that
No.
was Denton Ryan. I don't know. I'm getting all mixed up. But Denton Guyer point is that they make deep playoff runs. So, South Lake Duncanville is very interesting to me. Obviously, Katy Westlake. Um, North Shore Lake Travis is interesting because North Shore made it this far last year after coming off back-to-back state championships and then lost from a team from this district. Now, it's not Westlake, but Lake Travis still represents that district. So I'm curious because, I mean, let's be real. North Shore hasn't had, or they had an easier path to this point than most other teams, I would argue. So I'm curious to see how they respond against Lake Travis because Atascocita was probably the best team that they've seen. Granted, they didn't have Gavin Sessions, their quarterback, but also they had seen Atascocita before, so they know what they were getting themselves into. I'm curious on how they're going to respond to Lake Travis. It's a team they haven't seen in a long time. So I don't know. That is very interesting to me. Hey, also, we were talking about Katy. I thought Katy was going to have a cakewalk coming out of that Region 3. They almost lost to Summer Creek. I mean, it was tight, 34-31. So maybe that was a bit of a wake-up call for maybe Katy was overlooking Summer Creek a little bit to Westlake because Gary Joseph really preaches week in, week out victories. I think that was kind of a wake-up call for Katy being like, hey, we are beatable. So that's going to be a very interesting game.
Yeah, a couple of things. First, I think Jen Geyer last one 2013,
Wow.
and
Okay.
I said it was Walsh and his son that won that, but Walsh, I think JW Walsh, the quarterback at the time, he got to the state finals his senior year, but they didn't win. That was 2011 season. So, but just to correct it there, but I think you're right. I mean, look, I think outside of the Katy community, everyone's picking Westlake to win this game, and I think with good measure, right? Westlake really hasn't been tested this year. I think the closest game was a 3-possession win at I think 20 points or something like that in week I believe 2 or 3, and I mean they absolutely blew the doors off of Lake Travis, who's in the state semis in 6A D1, and Katie's gonna need that wake up call, right? Because they're going to have to bring their A-plus game against Westlake. And then, you mentioned North Shore and Lake Travis. North Shore's defense, I don't think, has faced an offense quite as good as Lake Travis's, maybe since Westfield, and we know how that one went. So, North Shore's going to have to, then their offense is going to come to play, right? So, I mean, they have a freshman quarterback coming in. They're run heavy. So, what's going to happen to North Shore if Lake Travis gets up on them early? Cheryl, let me turn it over to you. Just your initial thoughts on some of these matchups.
I think for me, what I think is going to be the hot ticket game, if you will, is going to be Duncanville versus South Lake Carroll. Um, Both teams have been incredible this season, and I think we're going to see probably one of the toughest matchups this week in that game. However, South Oak Cliff versus Lubbock Cooper. South Oak Cliff this has been a historical season for them. They haven't been this far, I believe, since 1970. Um, I'm obviously I'm rooting for them in this. I think it's going to be a really big game. I'm excited to see how that one goes down. I wasn't surprised to see Brock in Mount Vernon. This is going to be another big game down there in 2A. Another one that I'm interested to see how it plays out is Mansfield Summit and College Station. Um, College Station, they've been really great. They posted a decent win over Denton Ryan, and that's big when you can beat last year's state champion, and then that win takes you to the semifinals. You are on fire. You are ready to go. Mansfield Summit, though, they're kind of a surprise for me. And that big win, they had a big win over Colleyville Heritage. I I want to see them do well against College Station. I don't know if they quite have the caliber going up against College Station. I'm interested to see how that plays out. That's the most unpredictable game for me this week.
Yeah,
College Station has taken down some powerhouses. To your point, I mean, they took down Denton Ryan. They took down Frisco Lone Star. So, yeah, I'm curious to see how they respond. If they can, I'm curious if the battle has been really, it's almost been too tough for them to get it done. Now they easily can. I don't know. That's just one of my question marks, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think Liberty Hill versus Crosby will be another one to take a look at. I mean, like I mentioned, that one went
Oh,
down to
bro,
the
for sure.
that one went down to the wire
Yes.
last year. And what's interesting about this one is, I wouldn't say struggled, but they each didn't have starts that they wanted this year, right? I mean, Crosby got off, they were ahead on Carthage, and then Carthage came back and won. I think they lose a couple of others to start the season, and then they've kind of picked up steam, heading into district. And Liberty Hill was the same way. I mean, they had an early loss to Killeen, and that had me scratching my head. And now they're right back where they were last year, and now they're trying to get their revenge. That one should be a really good game, of course. And on the same bracket in 5AD2, South Oak Cliff taking on Lubbock Cooper. You usually don't see a team from the East making it all the way to the state championships, and then at the same time you don't really see a Dallas ISD school ever winning championships. So it's really kind of the quest of, can one of these teams kind of break the curse, if you will, of kind of the norm, quote unquote? And you gotta love what South Oak Cliff is doing. I mean, they are kind of, like Shayna said earlier, the kind of one of the, I wouldn't say team of destiny, but they're that team you want to root for, right? I mean, just
Tomball.
yeah, Tomball is another interesting one. Yeah, that's a good point there. I mean, they are going to be playing. They don't have a cakewalk. They're playing Denton Geyer, but I mean, yeah, you talk about they had to win their last game to even get into the playoffs. So, any last games you want to mention, Scott?
No, I mean, if you look at the Tomball, since we're talking about them, I mean, Caleb Helms, quarterback there, has just been balling out, dude. I'm telling you, balling out. Man, when you look at the scoreboard, though, they really put the pedal to the metal against Bridgeland. Connor Wigman didn't play. Connor Wigman was 1 day away from being out of concussion protocol, but he did not play. So take that with a grain of salt, but also on the flip side, Tomball beat Rockwall Heath, who we did not necessarily, or that at least I didn't see coming. So Tomball has really, what they have done this postseason cannot be understated of how impressive of a run this is. So big congrats to Tomball for making it this far. And we'll see if they can get it done. I mean, talking to Jackson here over at VYPE, one of our contributors, he was like, man, Tomball could go all the way, which would shock the world. I'm not ready to go that far, but that would be amazing.
Shayna, how about you? Any last games you want to talk about before we move on to the favorite segment of the week?
I mean, other than that, I just think Salina and Gilmer is going to be really good, and all eyes should be kept on that one as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. Definitely interested in Martin Fall City. Can Fall City kind of compete with the I guess the proverbial favorite in Martin? Well, we'll see. It's going to be a good one. It's in Elgin. I might have to go to that one. So let's move on to our favorite segment of the show, and let's see if my full intro will play right. And it won't. I gotta look into why it keeps on freezing on me. But hey, let it go here. Who's that mascot? Who's that mascot? Of course, is the weekly kind of fun segment we do where I give Scott 3 different schools and he has to give me the mascot of those schools. Of course, with Shayna's help, if she can give the help. Last week went the perfect 3-0 with the kind of a Hail Mary guess on the last one that you ended up getting right.
Help.
So let's see if you can continue. You've been on a very very good trend, getting at least 2 or 3 right the last few weeks. So let's see if you can continue that trend. I think you have the chance to. So are you ready for your first one, Scott?
Yes, sir.
Your first one is Azel.
Are they the Hornets?
Azel Hornets. Shayna, I will always turn over to you at this point to say, should he change his answer?
I think he has a very good guess.
All right. So, Azel Hornets, is that your final answer, Scott?
Yes.
You are correct. It is the Azel Hornets, starting off strong, 1 for 1. All right, your next one. Again, this one you might be able to get without Shayna's help. Let's see. It is Dallas Straight Jesuit.
really should know this one.
Made the run a few years ago. I believe Emmitt Smith's son was on that team when they made that little run, I think, to the state, either regional finals or state
Hey, on a side
semis.
note, I'm pretty sure it's just Dallas Jesuit. Like a straight Jesuit is Houston. I'm pretty sure they're Dallas Jesuit.
You might be right on that, but, I just
So
got
I don't want to. I'm just saying I don't want to get confused here, because if you're saying straight Jesuit here in Houston, I would say the Crusaders. But if you're saying Dallas Jesuit, I'm gonna go Knights. I don't think that's right, but I think they're the Knights.
All right, Shayna, is he right?
I think he should go Rangers.
All right, she's saying Rangers. Scott, what do you say?
Hey, that sounds good to me.
All right, Dallas Jesuit Rangers is correct. They are the Rangers. All right.
Thank you.
Hey,
All
2-0 with the big assists from Shayna. Moving on to our last one. It is Granbury.
Oh, I have no clue. I have no clue. Granbury Grizzlies.
Granbury Grizzlies. Shayna, what say you?
Oh, come on.
I'd say R, matey.
Pirates?
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Man, you have the best help in the world. It is the Granbury Pirates, and that means you are 3-0 once again. You need to send Shayna a Christmas present for sure, because she is helping you on these games, let me tell you.
I mean, we might as well be the Shayna show at this point. I'm fully. That's fine. I'm just saying. Call him spade here. He's nailing it.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to our last segment of the show, and that is One Good Thing. That is a segment where we give you one good thing that's happened to us this past week, whether that's sports-related, life-related, what have you. And let's start off with Shayna this week. Shayna, give us one good thing. How about that?
The Chargers have just been doing amazing, and going up against the Bengals after a tough loss, I really didn't think that they were going to put the fire there. I thought they were back to being the regular old Chargers that they are. But that win, it was really exciting for me, especially when they're about to go up against the Chiefs in just a couple of weeks, and the Chiefs are who's number one on their standings. So I would say that was a good thing for me. I'm pretty excited to see the Chargers doing so well, obviously all season. But this win especially kind of solidified my hope for them to continue to do well.
Hey, I think, I guess besides the Texans, we all kind of, had a good week in sports. And I think I know what Scott's one good thing is, but I'll let him kind of take over. Scott, I think I know what it is, but what is your one good thing?
Sorry, one sec. I obviously Baylor winning a Big 12 championship is my one good thing, but I'm gonna go a little spin zone here for you, Josh. I'm going with a different one good thing. I'm going with my one good thing is the Detroit Lions head coach Dan Campbell. The Detroit Lions won their first game of the season this year in a walk-off fashion against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So, or not the Timberwolves. They played like them, the Vikings. They played against the Vikings. And then Dan Campbell, though, gave tribute to his victory to those who were impacted in the Oxford, Michigan shooting. So that was my one good thing, dedicating, giving them the game ball to that entire community. So seeing them come together, and for the I thought that was great by head coach Dan Campbell. So that is my one good thing.
How about a kind of I guess side note on that? How about Michigan scoring 42 points? I mean, you can't make that stuff up.
It's incredible. It really is. So that's why that's my one good thing. Or if it wasn't that, then it would be Baylor Bears winning the Big 12 championship.
But you couldn't use that one because it was so obvious, right? Everyone in Washington knows that's what would have been. So
I got to try to keep people on their toes.
Exactly. So I think my one good thing is it's great to be a nerd right now. As you can clearly see behind me, I'm definitely a little bit of a nerd. But Halo Infinite comes out on Wednesday. And by all accounts so far, the reviews, I mean, the multiplayer was released earlier for free, and people are playing it, loving it. And the reviews that started dropping today for the campaign, it's all positive, so I can't wait to play it. And then, hey, Game Awards is this week, so if you're a nerd like me, Game Awards is this week, and there's been a tease of a giant reveal trailer coming for some type of game, and me being the Zelda fan, as you can clearly see behind me, I'm hoping maybe it's a more in-depth look at The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 unnamed sequel. So that's just me right there. That is my one good thing. Before we get out of here, of course, I got to turn it over to Scott and Shayna so they can plug where you need to go to follow along with everything we do at VYPE. Scotty, go ahead and hit us with that knowledge.
Everybody, go to VYPE.com. Go check out some amazing content that's dropping every single day throughout the day. So while you're there, go sign up to be a VYPE Insider. It's $1.99 a month if you pay $24 for the year, or comes out the $2.99 exclusive content, premium articles. I mean, photo galleries. Shannon just put up a photo gallery of Southlake Carroll versus Allen. So go sign up to be a VYPE Insider today, because that's the kind of content that you are going to be getting. So while you're there, you can follow us on our social media channels at VYPE Houston on Instagram and Twitter, at VYPE Texas on Facebook and TikTok. Why don't you go follow us on TikTok? Since you're here on YouTube, everybody watching, we appreciate you sticking with us. Click that subscribe button and go check out some of those highlights that I uploaded last night. It's awesome. And if you're listening to the podcast, give us 5 stars. Goes a long way. We appreciate you.
Shayna, how about you? Give us that DFW plug.
You know, you're going to want to follow along on Twitter at VYPEDFW. On Instagram, it's a little bit different. It's at VYPE_DFW. Like Scott said, we have fresh content coming out daily throughout the day. Today, we should be dropping a really good highlight video of Duncanville versus DeSoto's game. And that's something that you're not going to want to miss. We have a great team capturing all these moments for you. So be sure you follow along, subscribe, and definitely become a VYPE Insider so you don't miss anything.
And of course, VYPE ATX, VYPE SATX, Instagram and Twitter. And like I said, like Scott said, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We release the show, try and do it a few times a week. We got the highlights. We got all kinds of stuff you do not want to miss on our YouTube page. That's going to do it for our show today. We will, like I said, we'll be back Wednesday, I think, with Matt and Josh. I think Matt and Josh are joining us for the first time in like 7 or 8 weeks. It's gonna, they got to come in and talk about the state semis as they're here. They got some good topics they want to talk about. So definitely tune in there, and then we'll be back Thursday or Friday to talk some more kind of predictions and whatnot. So until then, I'm Wack. That's been Scotty and Shayna, and we'll see you at the games.